What's growing on, gardeners? It's Sunday, October 1st, and another growing season is winding down here on the southeastern coast of North Carolina, and now is the time of year where many gardeners look to remove old and dying plants from their garden. But wait, don't remove a single plant from your garden before you watch this video. I recommend that you do this instead.
If you're new to the channel, please subscribe and hit the bell to receive new video notifications, and check out our Amazon store and Spreadshop links in the video description for everything I use in my garden and awesome custom designed apparel and other gear. Your support is greatly appreciated.
Soil is so much more than a mixture of dirt and organic matter. It is a community of billions of different microorganisms all working in concert together. It is a living, thriving ecosystem. These microorganisms in your soil form a network or a web, so when you dig up a lot of your soil, you punch holes in that network that then have to rebuild themselves and heal over. So when it comes time to remove old plants from your garden, watch what happens when you rip it out of the ground. Look at that massive soil wound that I just created. I just uplifted several square feet of soil. This is devastating to the microbiome, and you're robbing tons of nutrients from the soil. Instead, when it comes time to remove old plants from your garden, you should do this. Take a pair of pruning shears and cut the stem of the plant about 2 inches above the soil line. Then let the roots of the plant sit in the garden soil and decompose for a couple of months. When it comes time to remove the plant, then you'll just grab onto that stem that you left 2 inches high and use it as a handle to pop out the old roots. And this will have two distinct benefits. Number one, when it comes time to actually remove that plant, because you allowed most of the roots to decompose, when you pop out that stem, it's going to leave a very tiny hole in that soil web that will be more easily and quickly repaired. Second, you also allowed all of the root mass to decompose and leach the nutrients back into the soil. So instead of robbing your soil from all of that nutrition, you're allowing all of the nutrients that made up the roots to leach back into the soil, almost like a form of fertilizer for the next crop. So now that you understand the concept behind this method, I'm going to show you how to do it. And my example crop is going to be this old corn that I harvested back in July. This has been sitting here for over 2 months. So by now the roots should have long since composted into the soil. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my pruning shears and I'm going to cut off these old corn stalks. And these can be either composted or you can use them as mulch for your fruit trees. Now that we've removed all of the corn stalks, we have a decision to make. If we still need to plant another crop of something in this garden bed right here, it is in our best interest to wait as long as possible for these roots to decompose before we plant another crop, so we allow as much of that organic matter that makes up the roots to return into the soil as possible, as well as so when it comes time to pop out these roots, we disturb the soil web as little as possible. Now, if you're not intending to plant anything else in this bed for the rest of the season like me, it is in your best interest to not do anything and just let these roots sit in here all winter. They may break down so much over the course of the winter that you won't need to do anything with the roots at all. There may be nothing left come the new growing season, and if you really want to double down, you can place another layer of mulch or a tarp over them and they may decompose at an even faster rate. Now, your decision may be made based on the amount of available space in your garden. If you have a small garden, you simply may not have the luxury of enough space if you grow all winter long to let the roots decompose throughout the entire winter. So for the educational purposes of this video, I'm going to pop out some of these roots to show you what we can expect from these corn roots after they've been sitting decomposing in the soil for over 2 months. Keep in mind that corn has an extensive wiry root system, so if you were to rip out a fresh corn stalk, it would pull up almost as much dirt as that eggplant that I pulled out earlier in this video that caused a huge amount of damage to the soil web. So keep that in mind when we get closer in and we pull out these roots. This is what we can expect. So now let's pull up some of these corn roots. We have 2 roots right here from 2 kernels of corn that I planted right next to each other. So this will actually be a double root. And look at that. Very little came up. 2 plants caused way less devastation to the soil web than that one single eggplant did. Now let's pull up this single. Very easy. What happens if we give this a little twist and a pull? Very easy. You can see how easily this just pops out. This one still had a little bit of pull to it. So you can see after about 2 months, some of the corn roots are still intact. So like I said, it's in the best interest to allow the roots to break down for as long as you possibly can allow them. This bed of corn right here was an earlier variety that I harvested about 2 or 3 weeks before that variety. So let's see how these roots look like by comparison. And these are a little bit more broken down, it appears. So here's the earlier corn compared to the later corn. So you can see once decomposition starts, it really begins to accelerate. So this is what another 2 or 3 weeks will give you in terms of decomposition than here. That is a pretty big difference right there. So because I'm not going to use these garden beds for the rest of the season, I'm just going to, at this point, allow all the rest of the cornstalk roots to break down throughout the winter. And if you have that luxury, I recommend you do that too with most of the plants in your garden. And although it's not an apples to apples comparison, I just wanted to show you the difference between the fresh eggplant roots that I ripped out compared to all of my corn stalks that I just ripped out. This is the 1 eggplant versus 10 corn stalks. So the roots of 10 corn stalks is far less extensive after allowing them to break down for 2 to 3 months versus the 1 eggplant plant. So that goes to show you how much more nutrients from these corn stalk roots have leached back into the soil where it belongs, and also how much less I disturb the soil by removing them. You'll also notice how bad of a problem I have with root knot nematodes in my sandy southern soil. This is why I've moved many of my nightshades over to growing in straw bales because of this problem, but that's a story for another day. And also keep in mind that some plants, like legumes, have the ability to form symbiotic relationships with bacteria that they colonize in their roots inside nodules and literally take nitrogen out of the air and filter it and store it in their roots. We call this nitrogen fixation. So if you're growing any legume, be it a peanut, a bean, a pea, or anything in that family, it's really important that you let all of those roots decompose in your soil for as long as possible, because those nodules will break down and release that nitrogen fertilizer back into the earth. So now that we've discussed all the reasons why it tends to be beneficial to allow our plant roots to break down and decompose in the soil for as long as possible before we remove the plants, let's talk about 2 scenarios where we can't do this. The first scenario is going to be if your garden is simply small and you don't have the space and the time to allow the roots to completely break down. If that's what you're dealing with, then all you can do is really just do the best you can. Try and allow as much time as is feasible in between plantings of crops to allow the roots to decay, but if you can't do it, you can't do it. Anything that you do in your own backyard in terms of growing food is way better than in the grocery store. So if all you have is a small space, just do the best you can. And the second reason is some roots of some plants may colonize pests and diseases. Now you saw it on that eggplant. It was loaded with root knot nematodes in the roots. In that case, I actually don't want those plants to have their roots break down in my soil. So for that reason, when I do grow nightshades directly in ground in my garden, I tend to pull the plants as quickly as possible. My tomatoes and my eggplant have extensive root systems, and they grow through my raised beds and they tap into the native sandy soil that is here, and that is just loaded with those root knot nematodes. So for that reason, I tend to pull the plants as quickly as possible. If you are dealing with some kind of pests or disease issues that colonize the roots, you may not want them to break down into the soil. And remember I said that old corn stalks and other decaying removed plant matter can make great mulch around your fruit trees? That's what I'm doing right here. Simply break off the old corn cob so you don't have kernels germinating all around your trees, and then break up the plant matter around your trees as necessary. And that right there is why it is often not best to pull out your old plants and instead let them sit in the ground for as long as possible for the roots to decompose. So everybody, I sure hope you found this video helpful and informative, and I hope it got you to think a little bit differently about what you're doing in your garden. If you did find it helpful, please make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and also please ring that notification bell so you're notified when I release more videos like these. If you're curious about any of the products that I use in real life in my garden that I use to help me grow food, they are all linked down below in my Amazon storefront in the video description. So if you expand the video description and click on the Amazon link, you'll see everything I use in real life. And while you're down there, check out my spread shop for custom merch if you want to support the channel. Thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to see all of you again on the next video.
Hey Dale, it's early, buddy. You wanna go outside? Come here. Come here, Mr. Handsome. Come. Oh, there's my boy. The best good morning present ever. Buddy, you have to go potty? Oh boy, that's a yes. All right, buddy. I'll be up in a minute.